Throughout our Kaleidoscope Coalition listening sessions and surveys, many families report that the cost of housing is making it very difficult to meet basic needs, and quality health care and healthy food has become increasingly unaffordable. Families don't experience challenges in silos. Housing, healthcare, food, transportation, childcare, and employment all affect one another. How would you break down silos across state government so families can access services more easily? How would your approach differ if you faced a divided legislature versus one controlled by your own party? And what is your specific strategy to pay for it? Mandela, you start.
How you go from lightning to essay question?
Easily, I read it.
Okay.
Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I think I got it. Nothing works anymore. And that's the reality of it. Everything is really, really broken. Childcare, healthcare, housing, education, all of our systems are either not working or on the brink. And that's the problem that corporate greed has brought upon us as a society, as a state, as a country. Now, when I talk about my personal story, my granddad moved to Milwaukee after his service in the Navy during World War II, got a job as a union steel worker, was able to retire comfortably, was able to retire with dignity, but most importantly, he created a middle-class foundation that I get to benefit from today. And I share that story because he was able to buy a home without a college degree. He was able to have access to the American dream, provide something for the next generation. I literally wouldn't be standing here today if it were not for what he had available to him, if it were not for the opportunity that he had in the late 1940s, early 1950s. And it's a shame when you think about people in my age group, people who are younger than me, who struggle to be able to purchase a home, who struggle to be able to start a family comfortably. In that factory where my granddad worked, it doesn't exist anymore. And it's not as if people got tired of working. It's not as if people stopped getting bills in the mail. It's because the executives in these corporations felt that they can make more money by sending our good paying jobs away from the country. And it has caused a devastating impact on communities like the one that I was born in, where people work so hard and still are not able to get ahead. And it's led to brain drain. It's led to population decline, which also leads to a decreased tax base to keep up specific services like public transportation, to keep our schools fully funded. And we are still dealing with the impact of the decisions that the wealthiest among us in our society have made. They have made their virtually unlimited sums of wealth and they've run away with it. No accountability to the communities that made them as rich as they become. Zero accountability for the devastation that they left in their wake once they left. And so it is important for us to shift the paradigm and hold corporations accountable, tax the most wealthy in our society, because they are still making money hand over fist. We are seeing the most profitable companies and corporations to ever exist show up to state legislative bodies all across the country, to show up to town halls demanding tax breaks, demanding tax incentives, just so they can make even more money and play the same old playbook that they have been playing, making as much money, extracting as many resources, and getting the hell out of town, going somewhere else and doing the same thing over again. We have to hold them accountable by taxing them as they should be taxed. And we also have to put that money directly into our schools to fund our future and create the conditions for good paying jobs to be created through public transportation and higher education.
All right. Thanks, Mandela. Kelda.
Okay, so I think the questions were, how do you break down the silos in government, which is really about administrative power and how you govern? How do you pay for it, and how does it change if there's divided government?
Yes.
Is that it? Okay. So it was a long one. And also I was so distracted by not knowing how long we have to answer.
30 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay. So I think one of the ways that we break down silos is by re-empowering public employees to have a voice in solving problems. One of the things that Scott Walker took away from us, besides economic security and great public education that's well funded and collective bargaining rights, is he took away, I think, the sense of state employees and civil servants that they actually got to have a professional role in. And when you politicize agencies, and you always have to be looking over your shoulder to see if you're going to be punished for talking to a legislator or coming up with a new idea, you end up at a very risk-averse place. And I think that makes it really hard for us to meet the challenges, because Mandela's right, nothing works. Everything is terrible and government can't solve problems. And a lot of that has to do with political dysfunction and money in politics. But a lot of it also has to do with the fact that we have deprived our state employees, the frontline people who are the closest to knowing what the people that they're serving are looking for. We've deprived them of their voice and their ability to use it. I would say there's also a technology answer here. And believe me, no one is more skeptical of big tech than I. I've authored more legislation to bring big tech to heel than any other legislator in the state. But there is also an opportunity here to help all state agencies and local governments talk to each other more easily on the back end using technology. We can leapfrog 40 years, which is good because we haven't done any technology investments in 40 years in government. How do you pay for it? We have the resources. It's about making different political choices. We're going to bring back, top tax rates on multimillionaires and billionaires. We are going to eliminate tax credits for polluters and big corporations. I don't want to hear about you can't pay for it as long as we're sending $2 billion to data center developers. We absolutely have the resources, and there are new places that we can get resources, right? We spend way too much money incarcerating people and not enough educating people. We should legalize and tax cannabis and use that and pour that money into early childhood education. So there are a lot of places that we can get more money and save money, but the strategies are going to have to differ depending on who's in control. I think our chances of having a Democratic legislature are going to vary tremendously based on who is at the top of the ticket. And you can see that with the bets that Republican special interests are making. They're investing $16 million in Republican state legislative races because they think we're going to have a candidate at the top of the ticket that's going to offer them a Republican trifecta. I am the only candidate in this race that has worked in Democratic, Republican, and split legislatures, and I've been able to get things done on progressive issues in every single one of those situations again and again for over 20 years. I know how to get stuff done.
Thanks, Kilda. Fran?
Leadership is defined by who you surround yourself with and a commitment to fostering leaders in others. And it's difficult for our state agencies to do that. Yes, because they have stripped our public employees of collective bargaining rights. However, they're also working under the conditions of being punished as opposed to being encouraged to be innovative, especially when we are lacking resources. It's imperative that our state agency secretaries and those who are working within different departments share the values of putting, of understanding that the people who are closest to the problem should be closest to the power because they are best suited to understand the solution. I think ensuring that we are having people who with these shared values of putting working class people first and creating working conditions in which our public employees are empowered to innovate, to work efficiently, to know that budgets and state agencies are going to be fought for by their executive to make sure that the resources and the staffing is there for actually being able to implement our legislation and provide the essential services that our communities deserve. I think creating that work culture has to start with the executive. And breaking down silos, it's a non-starter. We are in crisis response mode, and that requires efficiency, organization, and ensuring that resources are being allocated effectively across agencies, but also identifying where some of those gaps are, because we've had people in power who maybe are not, who aren't being encouraged to actually think about, putting the service and the person first. In terms of working with a divided legislature, right now our campaign is organizing to make sure that we are electing Democrats down and up the ballot. It's why we've invested so heavily in an organizing ground game and having people already knock tens of thousands of doors, talking about the importance of electing Democrats to make sure that we, when we elect Democrats, we can legalize weed and put those tax dollars into the investments that we need. That when we elect Democrats, that's how we're going to be able to make sure that we're taxing the ultra rich and putting that revenue back into our communities. That when we elect Democrats, we can raise the minimum wage and abolish a tip minimum wage that's an abysmal $2.33 an hour. I think that I've passed bipartisan legislation. I know that there takes different political strategy and a willingness to sacrifice, to put someone else's name first. I think that there is power in vulnerability and understanding that the person who gets things done sometimes is okay with being behind the scenes. But as governor, I'm going to make sure that everyone who is working in state agencies is feeling empowered, understands that their governor is going to go to bat for them and ensuring that they have the resources and the staffing that they need. But the people who are in management and leadership share our values of making sure that the people who are closest to the problem are the ones who have to be closest to the power.